Josh, who's a better actor, Tommy Wiseau or James Dean?
You gotta tear me apart.
I'm Joe.
Josh,
You've got questions?
you're feeling grounded.
Welcome to Feeling Grounded with your hosts, Josh and Joe.
So what we want you all to do right now is subscribe to Feeling Grounded Podcast, like this video, share this video to any person that you think might enjoy our content. Also, become a patron. We want you guys to join us on Patreon, only paying $3 a month. And you guys will get to see exclusive content that Josh and I genuinely enjoy, love to put out there. Also, follow us on Instagram at Feeling Grounded Podcasts. And we like to put extra stuff on there before each episode airs. Also, I want you guys put some comments. We want you guys to start a discussion with us. It's important because these are topics that Josh and I want to see more people
Discussing.
Yes. Leave a comment or leave a question because that's what we're all about. We won't shut you down unless we don't like you. No.
You're just being a jerk.
Entertainment. Where's the entertainment, guys?
Rebel without a cause.
This has been on my list for probably the last 15 to 20 years. And now finally watching it for the first time, I can see the appeal.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, this was a movie that was released in 1955, starring James Dean and Natalie Wood. And I think this might have been James Dean's last movie.
Yeah, because he died 3 weeks, I think, before premiere.
Right.
Yeah, he ran his silver Porsche off the highway.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I knew it was a car crash. Wow. But yeah. So yeah, it was a 1955 American drama film all about like emotionally confused suburban middle class teenagers. So dealing with kind of the descent of the family model, which is interesting. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. This was, so first of all, I love this movie. And every time we talk about movies, it's a good movie that I love. So I feel like I'm always saying I love this movie. But I do. I think it's great. And I understand why James Dean was so loved as an actor. Because he's a legend in it. Like he was just so natural and it didn't feel like he was acting. He just was just like this cool character that was just like there on screen, just saying things.
Yep. Like you could have just put a camera in front of him as if it was one of his days that he's just living life.
Exactly. He was just there, just chilling out with people and talking and being this new kid. And
yeah, it's like kind of reminds me of the Eagles song, New Kid in Town. Everybody loves him because of the fact that he is new and so natural. And, Natalie Wood, of course, she grows to have a fondness for him because of the fact that he's so comfortable in his own skin when it comes to other people near him.
Yeah, exactly. Then of course
and she loves that quiet confidence. And that's a really good rule of thumb for any guy.
Yeah, exactly. Just being confident in who you are. Yeah, I think confidence is like really is a deficit today. Like people are not as confident anymore. And I think there's a lot of insecurities that people feel and experience. And I'm sure technology has something to do with this, but I don't want to talk about that too much today.
Yeah.
But I think that's huge. The confidence in who you are and in your like natural settings, just existing with other people.
I also noticed that with Jim's character, James Dean, he of course had this quiet confidence about him, but that kind of comes from the idea that knowing when to shut up and letting other people talk, so that when you talk yourself, other people listen, and even if they disagree with you, they respect you more. I think that's a really overlooked principle of his character, that when he does speak, other people notice.
Yeah, definitely. And that's great. Yeah, that's big. To just have that kind of position, obviously it's a movie or whatever, but like to be able to bring in people's attention while you speak. is beautiful. It's a powerful thing.
So he's a youngster, of course, a teenager, and this is all about, a movie that defines like what a teenager is and, the breakdown of the nuclear family. He's a youngster grappling with, the pains of growing up in the 1950s, conformity following the war was breaking down. The youth felt pressure that America was, picture perfect post World War II, and it clearly was not. And teens felt concerned about how to conduct themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because growing up, everyone always would talk about how the 50s was like the perfect era, perfect decade, that this was the best time for family, for faith, for morality, for everything, for people would say style and music and all that.
It's a very Leave It to Beaver, rose-colored glasses mentality.
Like Mythic Van Dyke Show, like all this stuff kind of just shows like, dad went to work and mom took care of the home and the kids and was happy about it. And then when they came home, they were happy together with a meal at the table and then relax at the television, afterwards. And so you just kind of get this like everyone was just happy, everything was innocent and good. But then a movie like this comes out. It shows the reality of how like you said, the nuclear family is starting to fall apart.
Yep.
And it's crazy, man. And I think especially for us, when we talk a lot about like men and masculinity, the big problem with this family, the Starks, Jim, James Dean's family, the fact that the dad, the father figure, just is not really a father figure.
He's a complete wimp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's I don't want to say feminized, but like he's emasculated.
No, I think it's fair to say that he is feminized because you see the apron that he wears is clearly meant.
Apron. He does like food. He gives him food and money, and he's not. Yeah.
And he's and worst of all, this is the thing that stuck with me the most, when James Dean is actually trying to really give his soul to his parents and really talk about what happened, and they just deny, accuse him, or worst of all, in the father's case, he doesn't even listen to James Dean. This is about an hour of the way through the movie, and he's like, "You're absolutely right." He's saying to Jim, "You're absolutely right," and then James Dean just like shouts at him, "It's like, you're not listening to me." I think parenthood is, of course, one of the hardest jobs in the entire world. I can't really speak to that, but from what the people that I know, you included, that it's an incredibly hard job to listen to yourself, and you lose the respect of your kids when you don't at least listen to them, because
exactly. And because that's a big issue, right? And I think oftentimes there is this kind of like mentality of, I did your diapers, I like took care of you, I did all this stuff. And so like there's this kind of parent to child relationship that kind of exists oftentimes, where it's like, no, you don't understand what you're dealing with, and and you're fine, like everything's fine.
Yeah, in that same conversation, the dad's like, "When you're older, you will understand."
Yeah, exactly.
But clearly it was an argument that they were trying to argue something that was morally wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then just trying to shoot him down as if he wouldn't understand until he reaches their age. But it's a universal truth. He knows what's morally good. And that's what's interesting. It's a rebel without a cause. Clearly the kid does have a cause, which is the irony.
Exactly. And so, yeah. And for me as a parent too, like the importance of listening to your kid is so, it's immense.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly important for your child to know that you're listening, especially if daddy is listening. You know what I mean? Especially if dad is paying attention to you. Because I know with my son, and even just the babies too, if they have my attention, they just are better. They're happier. They're enjoying life more. They're not asking for attention. They're not, reacting. They're not getting angry. They're not fussing. They're not, being emotional, throwing tantrums. If they know that daddy is with them, is listening, and is attentive to them, and is playing with them, and is down to their level, then they're at peace and they're happy, they're excited, and they know that they're loved. And that's the descent here. It's just the reality that like dad and mom in this scenario just don't care enough. The dad kept saying, like, listen, I bought you all this stuff. Like, I got these things for you. Like, isn't that enough?
And that pride sets in. Yeah, it's
exactly. So so in return, you need to like love me and be better because I'm getting you things.
But it doesn't equate respect from the kid's side. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Materialism doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any good.
And that's another representation of the 50s too, because you have all these other inventions that came up. You have your television, you have at least one in the suburbs of each family home, refrigerators, washing machines. Yep.
Everything. Right. And so really just for a dad especially to go down to the level and to look at their son in the face and say, I know and I'm sorry. I know and I'm sorry. And to just be present for them. Let me help you. Let me help you out of this. Like, let me take care of you. What do you need? But like to just be in a connection with them as opposed to just saying, no, you're fine. Everything's fine. I'll just buy you a new thing or whatever. It's such a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in today's world, fatherlessness, it's at an all-time high. Yeah. And I think a lot of the fathers that are in the homes are not there. And I think we hear about this so many times, and I see this in these kids. Most of them don't even know their fathers because they're working or they're away all the time. They're bringing home the bacon, but then these kids are falling apart because of that reality. They're acting out. They're not investing in their education. They're not like being present. They're starting fights at school. They're swearing. They're being exposed to all the stuff that they shouldn't be exposed to. And so that really has such a massive impact on the family model,
right.
on the nuclear family. And so as much as people hate to say it, men need to be men. Men need to be fathers. They need to be masculine, not in the sense of a beard and a flannel shirt and chopping wood outside, but like you need to just lead and to love, love your family, and then to realize that comes first above everything else.
Yeah.
For the betterment of your family.
It's interesting that you bring that up. Something that sticks out with me from what you just said. I remember Judy, the character, Natalie Wood's character, and James Dean in the mansion in the second half of the film. Judy kind of confesses why she's fallen in love with James Dean's character. And I believe she said, of course, she loves him for his masculine qualities, but also the fact that he is sensitive and empathetic. And he exudes that at the very beginning of the movie when he offers his coat to the other person before he goes in to be questioned by the cops.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I know it's that firsthand because I had this impression based on the title, Rebel Without a Cause. You see James Dean on the cover. I thought he was just going to have rebellious tendencies and just a devil may care attitude, but it clearly was not the case and threw me for a whirlwind, just as I'm sure it did for the character Judy.
Yeah, definitely. So he kind of exuded those traits that he wasn't receiving from his parents, and that is interesting. That he was able to love and to feel for others in a way that he wasn't really receiving at home. But yeah, no, that's so true. And that's everything. I think oftentimes we do live in a time where, it's always been this way, that men aren't supposed to talk or they're not supposed to share their feelings. They're not supposed to feel empathy. Like they're supposed to just like live their life and then they die, like trying to achieve success and whatever that may look like. But when you're able as a man to share your heart with another person, the vulnerability that is required to do something like that, the amount of growth that you gain from that is massive. Like it really is massive. I think I look back on our like college experience a lot, and something that we did a lot was we'd go on retreats.
Yeah, and we led them, you and I.
And we would we would lead them. And I remember I was the team leader to that search retreat, And search was massive because this retreat was all about like, what are you looking for? Like, where's your heart at? How can you receive healing? And everyone who went away in this weekend was able to find healing. And I went through a lot of hard stuff in college, just in my own personal life. And so to be able to work that out and have a place where I could go to people, someone like you and like Zach and all these other individuals, and just share stories and share like what was going on, like the gunk in my life, and being vulnerable and open, I was able to receive so much healing
and life wasn't so bad.
Exactly. And you learn about forgiveness, and you learn about all this stuff through these experiences, and you become a better man as a result. And I just feel for people that don't have the outlets like that. Like they don't have a time that they can like open up and give people their gunk in order to better themselves,
Right.
And it's necessary, I think. Vulnerability is scary, and it's so scary as a man. But I think when you get to that place, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, to be an emotional rock where you don't show things is in the short term, it could actually be pretty beneficial, but that can kind of warp your sense of reality, and then it kind of eats away at your soul.
Yeah, exactly. You bottle everything up and it's gonna explode eventually. That's a cliche, right? But yeah, you weren't made for that. You weren't made for that. So, but yeah. So one thing I wanted to talk about too, really briefly, was just to like discuss like where this descent kind of came from. Like where did all this kind of occur? And I think, oftentimes we look at that generation, like I said, and we say like this was the best time. This was the best time. But I think, after a lot of studies have been done, and when people are really put a microscope to the 50s, they realize like how broken people were, especially after the war. Like how men just came home with all this
baggage.
Yeah, baggage and the trauma and PTSD and being shell shocked and all this stuff. And it just triggered to, alcohol abuse and, substance abuse, domestic abuse, like all this stuff, which then destroys the family. So I think that played like a massive role in that. But in the same token, it's also seen as like this generation of men was also like the best because of their experiences as well, that they knew what they were living for, and they were able to have the confidence to come home and marry their sweetheart because they were shooting people and were being shot at. To like live through something like that, like then they can conquer any battle.
Yeah, good point.
So there is that flip side too. But yeah, I think it all kind of stems from that.
These first 2 decades, the 50s and the 60s, it was kind of the degradation of the nuclear family, and we're seeing the effects of it even still today.
Yeah, exactly. The 60s was really pivotal in that. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because like my impression of the 60s is like it's the worst time ever. Like I think in music it was the best, but I think for society, for culture, for humanity, it was
it certainly gave something great as far as material goes, which kind of leads me back into Rebel Without a Cause, where Judy, Jim, and Plato are they're making home in an abandoned mansion, right? And it's an eerily beautiful segment because it's escaping from this adult world that clearly they will have to be fallen prey to in the near future, but they're making something perfect out of it in the short term.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know that whole thing is so interesting with the three of them, because that's something cool to talk about too, is like how James Dean's character becomes kind of like a father figure to this Plato, even though it's just like an instantaneous moment when they're together. But like you just see that they kind of have almost like this nuclear family experience just on their own.
Yeah, you know right.
Plato's the kid, and then Natalie and James are the together, mom and dad, in this house that they just find. Like it's crazy. So you just see like this brokenness, that they desire family to the point where they're just going to be together as this three randos that are like trying to live this way because of their brokenness at home, like all of them.
Yeah, that's where they're I don't really know too much about Plato's family life, but as far as Judy and Jim go, that's kind of how they found their bond.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the same with Plato. So Plato too, his parents were gone. They were like on vacation or something. So a nanny
Oh
was
yeah.
taking care of them, and like for a long period of time, for like years. I think he said like he hasn't seen his dad in like since he was like a baby or something like that.
Hmm.
Like something ridiculous. And so again, you see the same problems. Mommy and daddy aren't home. So here's the issue. And then of course he leads to his insanity at the end with wanting to kill people.
Hmm.
Man, this is such a good movie. It's like such a good statement.
You can probably unpack this even more so than what we are doing because there's so many layers to it.
Yeah, no, there really is. I mean, there really is. Um, yeah. So what I would say, watch this movie, tear it to pieces, think about it, talk about it, discuss it, and just realize like the importance of the family model because it's so incredibly important in our culture today has no concept of this still, and it's I mean it's just gone downhill since.
The future is inevitable, but let's travel back in time.
September 15th, 1935, the Ehrenberg Laws were put in place. It's the first piece of racist legislation that would result in the Holocaust. This was designed by Adolf Hitler, and it first of all deprived Jews of German citizenship, and then also forbade sex or, more importantly, marriage between Jews and those with German blood. So
That's so the fact that that is a thing, like a law that says that like you can't wed another someone who's a different race or whatever. Like that's ridiculous. It's a different religion or whatever you want to say.
absolutely.
Yeah, horrible, horrible stuff. Everything with the Holocaust, it's like it's so disgusting and so jarring. I mean,
did it. Go ahead.
it was like one of the biggest atrocities ever. The fact that the hatred of the Jews and what they went through. I mean, there's you can't even fathom like what it was like.
I had toured in Auschwitz. It was about a 4-hour tour. Loved our tour guide because she really made you feel immersed and, care about the place that you were and have respect for, the events that happened and have empathy, of course. But yeah, like I said, it was a 4-hour tour, and by the end, you were drained just by walking at it and seeing all the atrocities. Because we went to Auschwitz 1 and Auschwitz to Birkenau, which was Auschwitz 2. Auschwitz 3, I think, was burned down. Yeah, you saw the train tracks, you saw the gas chamber, and they were asking you not to take pictures inside the gas chamber out of like respect. You could take pictures in other areas. But yeah, one of the worst parts of that, one of the worst parts was in part of the museum, you saw piles and piles of shoes and hair. It was like a whole room.
It's just such a horrible atrocity. But there is something to that. Like I remember reading one of my favorite books to read is Man's Search for Meaning, which I think we might have talked about before. But it was just like this psychologist's response to him being imprisoned in Auschwitz and his own experience there, like how he saw everything and how he basically just took it with like an analytical perspective while he was there. And he just like took notes down and he did all this stuff. And it's just crazy to see like what happens to humanity in those given circumstances.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. I remember almost every year in a lot of my classes, we would discuss the Holocaust and a lot of the stories. Like we read Night by Elie Wiesel.
Oh, of course.
And The Boy in Striped Pajamas or whatever.
Anne Frank.
Anne Frank, yeah, Diary of Anne Frank. So yeah, there was always like, especially in English class, there was always a segment on the Holocaust because there's just so much good literature that came out of it. And it was such a horrible time that like there's a lot of stories to listen to and to learn from. So September 15th, 1977. So Joseph, there is a nuclear test site, a nuclear test facility above ground and underground in Nevada. Probably about, I don't know, 600 miles away from Las Vegas. And so basically, this is kind of crazy. When we were like learning about nuclear technologies and nuclear devices in the 50s, the early 50s to mid to late, they would test it at this location. But they would just, for a long time, they did it above ground, which I think is insane. Where they would literally just bomb this test site, which is like, I think it was like 1,300 square miles. And what they were finding is that they didn't realize, I guess, that radiation was a thing. And there's some videos I saw where like there was like literally like they were like training soldiers, and bombs were going off and they were getting hit with radiation. Like, so we were bombing our own people basically. And then the wind would carry the fallout into like local towns and cities in Nevada and Utah, and people were being just poisoned, and like cancer like exploded in those regions. And they never like did anything about this, except they just decided to do all the testing underground instead of above ground. I don't like they're scientists creating these things, and they don't like realize that radiation is a thing, or that there's a like a byproduct of the nuclear explosion.
It's the equivalent of it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's so many people, like so many veterans and so many just families that have towns and cities and locations that have been destroyed because of this. And it's just nuts. But in 1977, so September 15th, the ebb tide. And it was, this one was done underground because they came to the realization. And it was a little bit of a smaller bomb. It was only 6 kilotons. And it went off at 2:36 on September 15th, 1977. It was on
PM?
PM, yep.
Okay.
So yeah, that happened. I was reading this article and it just blew my mind. Like that this was even a thing. I remember seeing footage from like Nevada test site explosions, but I didn't realize that like they would have people close to it that could be hit by the radiation, and then also just neighboring towns and cities that were just getting, rained in radiation. Like it's horrible, and nuclear fallout.
It's basically do it and then apologize for it later.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't hear anything about, I mean, I'm sure there was lawsuits and stuff, but I don't know if anything fell through or not, but I'm sure they're hopefully realized and paid people back for
the damages.
It's time for Happy Crappy.
So how you doing, Joe?
I'm doing okay.
I feel always start. Do I always say like, how you doing, Joe?
Yeah, that's kind of been our trademark.
Yeah, but that's like our that's like, it'll be on my tombstone. I'll just be like, how you doing, Joe?
Is that implied that we're gonna get buried together?
Hey, who knows? So anyways, how are you doing, Joseph?
I feel like this week was a lot better than last week. I feel like I've got a lot of rest on my belt, and I could use a little bit more, truth be told, but I'm feeling okay. How about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, it was a pretty nice week, kind of just diving into real life again now that school is starting and all that. I haven't gotten into the classroom quite yet, but just kind of prepping for everything. It's all getting real. But yeah, it was a good week.
Any unexpected changes or just rolling with the punches?
Yeah, so it's kind of going back to the way things used to be pre-COVID, which is nice, which is much better. Because during COVID, I was in the classroom a lot, just because I wasn't really doing as much outside of the school. So now we're going back to how it used to be, which was that me going in to the classroom like maybe once a week, once every other week, and then the majority of the time is my events and my youth groups and all that stuff that I get to really invest in, which is nice. Because last year was tough because I would be in the classroom so much that it was hard for me to really invest in my youth groups, and so I kind of had to put that on the back burner a bit.
It was hard for a lot of people to invest, I'm sure, because with remote learning, you have no.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that. Yeah, because it just took up so much time. But yeah, so I'm happy things are going back to normal. Feels good. And I was kind of seeing, because I'm not really a teacher, so I would just go in, like literally this my subject, my class on the kids' schedules, it just said Josh, like so it'd be like math, science, religion, and then like Josh. So I would just come in and just like do whatever with them. I would play with them. I would, we'd do games. We would do discussions, talks. I would have them ask questions. Like
One credit for the Josh course.
yeah, exactly. But it was good to be in there. Like I said, it was really hard because that's not normal for me. But
Yeah.
I'm excited for this year. I think it's gonna be good. I'm fired up, ready to go. I think it's gonna be great. New year.
Rested and recouped.
So my happy was my parents came and stayed with us this past weekend. They're here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and left Sunday morning, which is nice because I don't see them very often.
Yeah.
It was super great. I went fishing with my dad in the mornings and just hung out with my family. It was really good for my kids to see their grandparents. Yeah, and it was just a great time.
What else did you guys do? Just a lot of hanging around. You watching any movies?
Yeah, we watched some movies. We hung around a lot. We watched Thor Ragnarok. They watched some movies with Eli, and yeah, it was just a pretty chill time. It was nice. We didn't really like go and do anything, but besides just going to the beach.
Oh, you went to the beach too?
Well, yeah, because the fishing was at the beach, so I'd go with my dad.
Okay.
We go to the beach and we would fish and just kind of chill there.
I thought there was some lake where you were.
No. Yep. Which was nice. And then that's it. Yeah, just had a lot of good food and just relaxed.
Good. I'd say my happy was today. Worship team for church playing there was a blessing, as it always is. I felt like we really knocked the socks off a lot of people. I found a lot of optimism in what we were doing. To top it all off, I gave a testimony, which it felt good to be involved and to be asked to do that, and certainly hope I made some impact. But from what I heard, it made some something happen in people. So I was happy to at least give an experience.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think our testimony is really powerful. Oftentimes, especially when people have the opportunity to share, I think it's very, very powerful. It can have a great impact. Also, stories is everything, like telling a story just has people gripped. And so there's a lot of power in storytelling. That's what testimony is. Yeah,
we grow up with storytelling, and that's kind of something that keeps us engaged because there's hopefully in most cases, because I delve into weird stories, but hopefully there's a beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes I Tarantino by going back to the middle, by going back to the beginning.
Yeah, there you go. But that's great. Awesome. What's your crappy?
This is something that kind of hits hard. The more I thought about it, and the more like well, I should probably just go out and say it. I had left friends a couple days ago, to start off the week at my job. But in leaving my friends, I've been visiting a lot of people for this last month or so, traveling a lot, not really exactly having some time in my apartment alone. I won't get into specifics, but a lot of friends that I know are moving away that I have been visiting, which can be sad. I've traveled a lot these past few weeks, and I've done a lot of that in these past 3 or 4 years, this 3 or 4 year period of traveling. And I get the feeling I'm going to be doing less of that because they are moving even a little bit further away. It's a little bit sad, but it's a sign. And I talked to my parents about this for about a half hour or so. And I think my mom just said, like, you're basically moving on from that. It's like you'll still see these people, but it's going to be fewer and farther between. And that must be a sign that there's something greater for you personally that you got to work on. Not sure exactly what that is yet, but change is a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
In the short term.
Right. No, it definitely is. Definitely. Because I don't know what it is. It's just akin to human nature, and I always thought that I was good with change. I always sought it out because I always desired to like make differences and make changes in my life. But every time that I do, especially like big changes, like it really is hard to manage. Actually. And oftentimes changes can be for the better. And when a friend moves away, it is hard to come to reality with that. And there's a lot of like inner sort of like reflections that can kind of come with that too. And I think, yeah, it can be tough, man. So I feel you there.
You want to see like more and more people, but you realize that you're kind of growing out of it. People are getting older, they're getting married, and they've got something new that they have to focus on themselves, and that leaves you might feel like you're high and dry, but there's a blessing coming out of this crappy, and I can feel it. Not exactly sure what it could be, but I feel something.
Yeah. You never know with time will know. Something my dad said to me once a while ago, I kind of was struggling with this too, that kind of was a bit of comfort for me. It was just like realization that like that's what life is. Like life is a series of meetings and partings. And I think, with that in mind, it's like, well, yeah, and just recognizing that and seeing that, and well, so if maybe one friendship becomes strained or kind of fades, well, something new is going to come up. Maybe something new, some new people are going to come into your life, or they're going to grace you with who they are and their humanity, and they're going to create better memories and all that stuff. So just hold on to that reality. And then, but I feel you there. It is hard when people get up and go. Yeah, because life moves on at different rates, and it's for everybody, different for everyone. And yeah, I feel you, man.
But we'll always have these. Amen.
My invisible mug. So my crappy, I'm using my MacBook camera because the camera that I was supposed to get to work last week, I needed a cable for, and then I bought a cable, and I think it was the wrong cable because it's not working. Either that or I just don't know what I'm doing, but which could either be the case. So I bought a new cable, and I'm hoping that this one will work so I can have a nice camera, HD, 1080p, good lens.
Should probably invest in one of those, because every time I come to edit these videos, it's 720, and that's kind of all that I've got.
It's okay.
That's all that comes up in the feed. Like it's kind of blotted out, the 1080p, but we'll see once we upgrade and feeling grounded in our views.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People do Patreon, become patrons. Joe could afford a better. So
I'm not poor.
No, it's for the Joe. It's for the people. It's for the Patreon, Joe.
Feel bad for us. I misspoke. Yes, I'm destitute, even though I have a laptop.
My kids need food. I can't afford it unless you pay me.
We are renting out these buildings. We're broke.
This is just a room. I don't actually have a house. This is just a room.
These are shacks.
I'm squatting here. I don't even know who this. Remember that?
No, pay your own accord, people.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So what we want you all to do right now is subscribe to Feeling Grounded Podcast, like this video, share this video to any prospective person that might want to enjoy our content. Also, follow us on Instagram at Feeling Grounded Podcast. We have a bunch of content on there and funny stuff before each episode that I genuinely enjoy putting up those memes.
Yeah, definitely.
But also become a patron. Also, for $3 a month, you guys can see extra content that Josh and I genuinely enjoy, like to put on there. Also, we have included Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and Amazon Music. You can find the link in our Instagram bio.
Leave some comments. Leave a question. If you have some questions for us, we can do question segments. So pause the video and put a comment, you dingus. Or if you're listening to it on Spotify, go to YouTube and leave a comment, or Instagram.
But you've got questions?
You're feeling grounded.